let's move on to the last bit of the panel, and we're going to be talking about this game this weekend against Everton, and a bit of a selection headache for Stellini and Mason. Who the hell are we going to play at wing backs? On the right wing back, we've got Porro, who's come back after a dreadful international campaign with Spain, got hauled off at half time, but I suspect he will play on the right with Emerson out, and Doherty, we ripped up his contract, how much we could do with him now, and also Jed Spence, who we loaned out. So Porro's the only one fit on the right-hand side, but on the left-hand side, Sessegnon out, Perisic most likely going to be out. I mean, where do we go with this? We'll start with you, Dave, on this one. Wing-backs, who do you want to see start?
Simple. Bring up someone like Charlie Sayers or someone like that, you know? That's where I'm at with it. You know, what's the point of persisting with guys, even if Sessegnon comes back? What's the point? What has he shown this season? What has he done? He's a player that's completely regressed. You know, Ben Davies out injured. Perisic, even if he does get back before the end of the season, he's already stated he doesn't want to be here. So stop persisting with these guys. You know, we've developed a culture where, you know, someone like Dennis Serkin, you could have called upon him to bring him in, but he left because there was no pathway or no first team opportunities for him. He backed himself to leave and get back to this level. Same as Lavinia done it. Madueke, Marcus Edwards. There's a guy that went out to Italy, I believe Lewis Binks was his name. There's a few others as well. Where, you know, because they're sitting there and they're watching us away somewhere in the back half of Azerbaijan, right? And they're like, oh. You know, and then they're watching senior internationals being, you know, sliding around the place, being outplayed, and they're sitting there scratching their head like, well, why can't I get an opportunity? You know, why can't I do something? And I'm at the point where these players have already screwed the season up. So if you get injury crisis like that, or, you know, if you're not comfortable with throwing a player out there because he keeps showing you the same thing, start bringing up some of the youths. You know, you got to start clearing away for some of these youth products coming through. Look at the fee Madueke was bought for. Marcus Edwards is going to be another one that's going to go for a big enough fee. I predict Sergen will probably get a move soon, so he's going to go for a fee. We can't keep losing out on these players, you know, and watching other clubs spend massive fees on them, because even if they don't work out at Tottenham, it'd be nice to recuperate the money that we put into them in the first place and use it to affect, you know, the transfer budget and bring more in the first team. But I'm at the point. Give it to one of the youngsters. I was saying this when I think we had a massive injury with Reguilon and Ben Davies was playing left back at the time under Jose. What's the point? We keep losing these games, keep getting the same mistakes. Give the youngsters a go. You got Jamie Donnelly's father you know, complaining about, you know, the youth not getting a chance, and all the youth people questioning what's the point of being here? There's no pathway, and it's just clogged up with players, senior internationals who are not good enough. Then you know, we've got loads out on loan as well, so it's just completely clogged for them. And, you know, the reason why we keep giving these guys games is purely because we want to try and regain some sell-on value. We want to try and play them into form. Just cut twice and start giving the youngsters a go. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie, we have heard in the past from Conte that Lucas Moura could potentially play there, Kulusevski could potentially play there. In my opinion, on the left-hand side, maybe even a Danjuma can play there. Do you agree with Dave that maybe we should be giving youth a chance, or would you like to see one of these players being thrown in there?
Honestly, I think everything he said was just totally spot on. For me, I think these are opportunities now where we need, the way the club is run, because obviously, you know, the model will be, Nick, in terms of the transfer policy. It needs to be, you know, we need to be producing these younger players because we aren't willing to go and sign the top ready-made players. And this is an opportunity now to go and give a young player a chance. And, you know, often in these situations, or previous in the past, I might have looked at it and say, well, look, it's a bit unfair to just throw a young player into this sort of situation. But this is now the chance where a young player can, this is now the pathway that we've always wanted. And so I do think that is certainly something that should be happening. This is a great opportunity for a younger guy from the academy to come through. This is the only way it's going to happen. So I do think David's spot on there in terms of what he says. It's not going to happen, though, unfortunately. I think we all know that it's going to be a case of, I do think Longley will slot in at left back. I'd kind of like to see a set up.
But Ben Davies injured, who takes that left centre-back role?
So I think we'd perhaps set up in like a back four where you play Longley as left back. I think you'd have then Romero, Dyer and Porro as obviously the right back. And then maybe you kind of look to change depending on how the phase of the game. Maybe you have, when you're attacking, you slot back into a back three where you have Longley fill in. And then you've got Romero and Dyer as maybe a back three, and then you allow Porro to get forward. And then maybe when you're defending, you defend as a back four. So I think that's something that Arsenal have done this season and done it very well with Ben White. Obviously, we've seen him playing as a right back, and then when they defend, he slots into a back three with Gabriel and Saliba. And they've done it very well this season. And obviously, as well, give Sonny more of a chance to have more space as well. I think that he's been really affected by Perisic kind of taking up positions that he's usually been as well. So I think that sort of system would allow Sonny to kind of flourish a bit more as well. So that's how I would set it up in terms of a back four with Longley as a left back, slotting into a back three when we're attacking. Porro getting forward, and we know that kind of we need him to be creating the chances. We've seen kind of already how good he is at his range of passing, so we need to utilise that. So that's how I think it will set up. But
is that like a midfield three as well, like Sarr, Skip, and Højbjerg? I'm guessing.
Yeah, it would be something like that. And I don't quite know how I'd set up in terms of the rest of the team, but just in my head that's how I probably would go for it. I think as well. I just said as well, it just gives Sonny more space as well when you've got Longley, and obviously not taking up those positions, or Perisic taking up those positions. So yeah, I think that's how it should set up. But Dave makes just some great points. This is an opportunity now to have that pathway into the first team, but we're not going to see it, unfortunately, are we?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of players. I mean, Charlie Sayers is more of a centre-back than a wing-back, isn't he? So maybe a Maxim Pascozzi is the player that you throw in the deep end there. Romain Mundle as well. Yeah, he could be one. But Sim, what are you thinking? Do you think this should be the pathway now? This is a good opportunity for a pathway, or do you think one of the more kind of senior players should take the role?
In this kind of situation, if you're not going to play a youngster, when are you going to play a youngster? When you've literally got zero options, and you're literally, should I play Longley at left back? Should I put Danjuma at left wing back? If you're not going to play a youngster in this kind of scenario, then they're never going to get an opportunity. So I actually absolutely agree with Dave. In this kind of scenario, I would just give it to him. This is when youngsters sometimes surprise you. I remember when Man United had all their strikers injured, they put in a young Marcus Rashford out of nowhere. No one knew who he was. They just put him straight into the team because they literally had no fit striker, and he was like the one academy product playing well, made his debut and scored 2 goals. So sometimes this is the opportunity a youngster needs to kind of get involved in the first team, and they can end up surprising you. But given that Stellini and Mason are tasked with getting results rather than betting in young players, I can see them being hesitant to do that, and I can see them wanting to just try and fit a square peg into a round hole and putting someone in who can do the job. In terms of who can do that, it's very difficult. I'm really struggling. to see who they're going to, unless they're going to put like someone like Danjuma there. Are they going to?
I feel like they're going to.
Are they going to put? Maybe you can put him in. Maybe Tanganga. They think can do a job there. Although I wouldn't want to see him in that kind of role. Was it maybe a case of putting Porro on the left and putting Tanganga on the right?
Centre back and Longley left wing back.
Yeah, could we put Longley left wing back? But he's just not a wing back at all. It's just really I mean, do we do? Dare I say it? Do we go back to FA Cup?
You said put bloody Lloris at left wing back.
Lloris at left wing back. He's a lefty. We need a left footer. Dare I say it? Do we go back to FA Cup semi-final 2017 and put Sonny back at left wing back? I can't believe we decided to do that experiment on a bloody FA Cup semi-final. But there we have it. Do we do that? Kulusevski, he's played a wing back before, maybe, but that's more from the right. But could he do it from the left?
Danny Rose doesn't have a club. Let's get him back for one last dance.
I would honestly, if there's an academy player who can play on a left back or even a winger, like remember when Bukayo Saka broke into the Arsenal team, he didn't break in as a winger. They needed a wing back, and he was willing to do the job, and they just put him in, and he did that job really well, and he was a winger at the time. So maybe we just need like a young winger who's willing to work really hard and do that kind of role, and maybe that's where like a Mundle comes in. So I would say yes. I would say roll the dice and put a youngster in, and who can do the job, who you're confident can do the job. Because if you're not going to give them a role now, when will you? But I mean, to be fair, if it's not going to be a youngster, I'm really struggling, because I'm not really sure there's a perfect answer here as to who you can play there.
Yeah, Mundle predominantly does play on the right wing, right-footed. But look, that's the situation on the weekend. But we have had some breaking news while we're live, and we all know the kind of information that we got this morning on Cuti Romero and Richarlison being throwing Conte under the bus, giving ultimatums to the team or to the hierarchy about Conte or about to. Richarlison has hit back on that on social media, and I'm going to read out his statement that he's put on social media, and I want to get your opinions on it. So Richarlison has tweeted 17 minutes ago, questioning and criticising me as a player for my performance is part of football and I got it. However, telling lies about me, I don't accept. I've always had a lot of respect for Conte and for all my coaches. I wasn't a mutiny leader against him. It was quite the opposite. I'm sorry I didn't deliver as much as he expected of me, and I didn't do enough for him to stay. When he left, I sent him a message thanking him for everything and wishing him the best because that's what he deserves. On the other hand, the journalists responsible for the awful lie did not even do the least, which would be talking to my PR and listening to me. Bad professional and bad character, and shame on you, TYC Sports. Dave, what's your reaction to that?
He must have been listening when I said about, he shouldn't have that influence when he's only in here a year, and then he goes and tweets. He must have been watching. No, look, I sort of struggled. When I seen it, I sort of questioned it, because when you see him coming off crying, it shows that he really cares and he really wants it to work. Look, I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to say, we know that there are people leaking stuff to the press. How do we know it's not people leaking to the press to take attention off them, and they're the ones that are sort of doing it intentionally, causing disharmony and stuff like that? And for me, there's someone in the club doing it, and they have to be rooted out and booted out.
Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, I think the journalist who did it was an Argentinian journalist. He's very closely linked to Cuti Romero. So it's clear that Romero was the person who leaked these stories. I find it very strange that Richarlison's name was mentioned. I don't think there's a link there between the journalist and Richarlison. So that was obviously strange. I wonder whether, I don't know, maybe Romero's kind of mentioned his name as well to the journalist, just to kind of, because it's clear as day that Romero has clearly leaked that story to that journalist. As I said, he's very well connected to him, but. Yeah, again, I just think it just shows the culture in the dressing room when these players, they go and get tough, they go and leak stuff to the press, and I just think that is such a major problem at the moment, and that's why we speak about this culture, because they're all so comfortable, they've all got the power because Daniel Levy's given it to them, and it's just another messy situation of many situations going on at Spurs.
Sim, how are you feeling after that? Because we were quite critical of both Cuti Romero and Richarlison this morning when we heard that.
And it's easy to believe with Richarlison as well, because he obviously came out publicly with his dissatisfaction with his playing time, and Conte was calling him selfish in a press conference, saying he's only thinking of himself, he's not thinking of the team. So that narrative kind of writes itself when you're a journalist. And so when you read that Richarlison was going to give an ultimatum along with Romero, you kind of just believe it instantly. Obviously, he's publicly denied it now. Whether that's just is it to save face now that Conte's gone, or is it genuine? It's hard to know. But from Richarlison's point of view, I've always thought about him as a person who does have an attitude of working really hard. When he was at Everton, he was one who usually rolled his sleeves up when the going got tough, and that's someone that they could rely on. So I did find it hard to believe that he would just fold at Spurs when that happened. But then again, we did see that interview, so then that plays into the narrative. But
I guess
that
it's
journalist,
an easy assumption to make, isn't it?
It definitely is. That journalist is, as Jamie says, he's usually very reliable when it comes to Argentinian news, and especially on Romero injuries and stuff like that. He's usually very much spot on whenever he reports something. So as soon as he reports that, you have to, you definitely tend to believe it. But maybe it's Romero and Richarlison's rivalry flaring up again, and Romero's throwing him under the bus just for shithousery purposes. You never know. But I mean, it's hard. Look, I guess we'll never really know the truth, but I guess you have to take Richarlison's word if he's going that forceful against it and saying shame on you, COYS Sports. That's quite strong. So maybe he wasn't part of the group throwing ultimatums at Conte's side. And he said he had a good relationship with Conte, which is fairly interesting.
Very interesting.